It was late afternoon, the kind of hour when the light begins to thin out and everything in the room looks a little quieter than it did before. I was at home, half working, half drifting, waiting for a package. Not an exciting package. Nothing dramatic. Just something small I had ordered a few days earlier. But still, there is something comforting about waiting for a delivery. A small event in an ordinary day. A knock. A box. A brief human moment at the door. So when the buzzer rang, I stood up right away. Too quickly, maybe. As if I had been waiting for something more important than a package. I picked up my keys, walked downstairs, and opened the front door. The delivery guy was standing there with a box in his hands and the slightly tired expression of someone who had already visited too many doors that day. He looked polite, efficient, and ready to keep moving. I smiled, said hello, and took the package from him. It was a simple moment. Very normal. The kind of exchange that should last no more than a few seconds. A thank you. A nod. The door closes. Everyone continues with their day. And that is probably what would have happened if my brain had stayed fully awake. But there are certain phrases that live so close to the surface that they arrive before thought does. Small polite phrases. Ready-made ones. The kind your mouth reaches for when it wants to be kind without having to decide how. So I took the package, looked at him, and instead of saying thank you or have a good one, I smiled warmly and said, "See you tomorrow." The words came out so naturally, so gently, that for one strange second they sounded right. Almost familiar. As if this man was someone I knew. A neighbor, maybe. A coworker. Someone from school pickup. Anyone, really, except the delivery guy. He paused. Not for long. Just long enough for the sentence to settle between us. Then he looked at me, looked at the package, and gave me a small, careful smile. And that was the exact moment I heard myself properly. Not in my mouth, but in the air. See you tomorrow. Tomorrow? Why tomorrow? What had I imagined? That he would return with another box. That we had somehow become part of each other's routine. I felt my face change just a little. Not full embarrassment. Just that quiet, inner shift when you realize you have stepped slightly outside the moment and said something meant for another life. He gave a little nod, still smiling, and said, maybe. Not confused. Not unfriendly. Just amused in a soft way. The kind of answer that leaves room for everyone to move on safely. I laughed then. A small laugh at first, more out of surprise than anything else. And I said, "Sorry, I meant have a good evening." Which was closer. Not perfect, but at least it belonged to the actual situation. He laughed too. Only a little. Then he said, "You too," and turned back toward the van. And just like that, the whole moment became lighter. I stood there for another second with the package in my hands, watching him walk away. The air outside was cool and still. A few leaves moved along the sidewalk. Somewhere nearby, a car door closed. The day carried on without asking anything from me. And that was the nice thing. Nothing terrible had happened. No one stared. No one corrected me. The world did not stop to examine my misplaced sentence. It was only one of those small moments that feels larger from the inside than it ever looks from the outside. When you are living inside a language that still surprises you, sometimes politeness comes out sideways. A phrase appears from some other habit, some other rhythm, some half-awake part of the mind that just wants to be warm and appropriate and gets there in the wrong way. I went back upstairs, set the box on the table, and stood for a moment without opening it. I was still smiling. Not because I was proud of what I had said, but because it had already changed into something softer. Not a mistake exactly. Just one of those slightly misplaced moments that make a day feel oddly human. Later that evening, I thought of his face again, that brief pause, that small smile, that kind little maybe. And somehow it no longer felt embarrassing. Just funny in a quiet way. The sort of thing that stays with you for no serious reason, and makes you smile again when the room is quiet.